I was already clearing out my desk when I saw her walking toward me. The box in my hands was heavier than it should have been, filled with 10 years of loyalty, sleepless nights, and silent sacrifices. My co-workers avoided my eyes. The office air felt different that morning, thicker, colder, like everyone knew something I didn't. When the email from the executive floor came in at 8:07 a.m., asking me to report directly to the CEO's office, I knew it was over. People didn't get summoned upstairs unless they were getting promoted, or terminated. And I had made one mistake too many. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that sometimes our worst fears hide our greatest blessings, take a moment right now to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that life can surprise us in the most beautiful ways. I had always kept my head down at Ryan Global Technologies, one of the fastest growing firms in the city. The company had exploded under the leadership of its young and intimidating CEO, Aisha Rahman. She was brilliant, composed, and known for being ruthless when it came to standards. People admired her from a distance but feared being on the wrong side of her expectations. And for the past month, I had been convinced I was. It started with small things. She began attending my department's weekly meetings personally, something she had never done before. Every time I presented a report, her eyes stayed on me longer than necessary, her expression unreadable. She would ask pointed questions, not just about the numbers, but about my reasoning, my assumptions, my projections. It felt less like curiosity and more like scrutiny. When she asked for a one-on-one review of my latest project, my stomach dropped. At home, things weren't easier. My mother's medical bills were stacking up on the kitchen counter like silent accusations. My younger brother's university fees were overdue. I was the only steady income in the house. Losing this job wouldn't just bruise my ego, it would dismantle everything I was trying to hold together. So when my presentation glitched during a company-wide conference and the projection screen froze behind me, I saw my career flash before my eyes. I caught her watching from the front row, her expression intense. She didn't clap when I finished. The next day, her assistant sent another email. The CEO would like to see you. 4:30 p.m. That was when the whispers started. She's cleaning house. He messed up the investor report. She's not the forgiving type. By lunchtime, I had already accepted my fate. I began deleting personal files from my work computer and organizing folders for whoever would replace me. At 4:28 p.m., I stood outside her office, my palms damp, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure the receptionist could hear it. The door opened before I knocked. She stood there herself, not behind her desk but at the entrance, as if she had been waiting. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she stepped aside and gestured for me to enter. Her office was bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun, the city skyline stretching behind her like a reminder of everything she had built. I remained standing, clutching my notebook like a shield. She didn't tell me to sit. Instead, she walked to the window and stood with her back to me. The silence stretched. And then she asked something I didn't expect. She asked how my mother was doing. The question hit me harder than any accusation could have. I blinked, unsure if I had heard correctly. I had mentioned my mother's condition in passing once, weeks ago, during a late-night project review when exhaustion had loosened my guard. I hadn't thought she remembered. Yet here she was, asking about her by name. I answered cautiously, explaining the treatments, the hospital visits, the mounting costs. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she turned around, and for the first time, I noticed something different in her eyes. It wasn't cold calculation. It was concern. She then said something that confused me even more. She said she had been reviewing my performance personally because she believed I was capable of more than I was allowing myself to show. She said my ideas were innovative, but I often held back in meetings, as if afraid to take up space. She admitted she had been pushing me harder than others, not to break me, but because she saw potential I didn't seem to recognize. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or humiliated. Over the following weeks, the pattern continued. She called me infrequently, but instead of reprimands, there were challenges. She assigned me to lead a high-risk project that could either elevate my career or end it. It involved restructuring a failing division, negotiating with skeptical partners, and presenting a recovery strategy to the board. The pressure was unbearable. I worked past midnight almost every day. I skipped meals. I started doubting whether she truly believed in me or was setting me up to fail publicly. My co-workers grew distant, assuming I was under investigation or being tested before termination. Isolation settled over me like a shadow. One evening, as I was leaving the building long after everyone else had gone home, I found her still in her office. The lights were dim, her blazer draped over the chair. She looked tired, human, not the untouchable executive persona the company knew. She asked me to sit. That was when she told me something about herself. She had taken over the company after her father's sudden passing. Investors had doubted her because of her age. Senior managers had challenged her authority. She had learned to build walls, to appear unshakable, because vulnerability in her position was often mistaken for weakness. She confessed that when she first read my file, she saw a reflection of her younger self, talented, driven, but carrying invisible burdens. She said she understood what it meant to be responsible for a family while trying to prove yourself professionally. And then she admitted that the reason she watched me so closely wasn't suspicion. It was admiration. Her words unsettled me more than any threat could have. I had spent weeks believing she wanted me gone, when in reality she had been investing time in me that she rarely gave anyone. The realization forced me to confront my own insecurities. I had projected my fears onto her silence. As the project progressed, something shifted between us. Our meetings became less formal, more collaborative. She began asking for my input on broader company strategies. I found myself speaking more confidently in boardrooms, no longer shrinking under scrutiny. For the first time, I felt seen, not as an employee number, but as a person. Then came the night everything changed. The board presentation was scheduled for Friday. The future of the division, and possibly my career, hung on it. Halfway through my pitch, a senior board member interrupted, criticizing the risk level of my proposal. The room tensed. I felt the old fear creeping back in. My voice faltered. And then she did something unexpected. She defended me. Not politely. Not vaguely. She laid out the data, the projections, the reasoning behind every decision. She made it clear that the strategy was not just mine, it was hers too. She staked her reputation on it. In that moment, I realized she wasn't testing me from a distance. She was standing beside me. The board approved the plan. The months that followed were intense but transformative. The division began recovering, slowly but steadily. Revenue stabilized. Morale improved. My name started appearing in company newsletters, credited for the turnaround. But what mattered more than recognition was the quiet shift in my confidence. One evening, after a company celebration event, we found ourselves alone again in her office. The city lights shimmered below. There was a different tension in the air, softer, less guarded. She admitted that somewhere along the way, her professional interest in my growth had become personal. She said she admired not just my work ethic, but my resilience, my loyalty to my family, the way I carried responsibility without bitterness. She confessed that she had struggled with the boundaries of her role, afraid that any hint of favoritism would undermine both of us. In that moment, everything made sense, the intensity of her gaze, the relentless challenges, the late-night check-ins. I had mistaken affection wrapped in professionalism for hostility. I told her the truth too. I told her how intimidated I had been, how certain I was that she wanted me fired. I admitted that beneath that fear had always been something else, a quiet respect, a pull I couldn't explain. But I had buried it under assumptions. We stood there, two people who had built walls to survive, finally acknowledging the space between them. Our relationship didn't transform overnight into something reckless or scandalous. We moved carefully, thoughtfully. We informed the board. We established clear boundaries. Transparency became our shield. What began as fear evolved into partnership, both professionally and personally. At home, my mother's treatments improved. The company's new health initiative, one she personally approved, covered a significant portion of employee family medical expenses. My brother completed his degree without interruption. Stability returned to our lives. Looking back, I realize how close I came to walking away out of fear. How easily I could have misread her silence forever. Sometimes the people who push us hardest are the ones who see our potential most clearly. Sometimes authority hides vulnerability. And sometimes the person you think is your biggest threat is quietly your greatest supporter. Before this story ends, I want to ask you something personal. Have you ever misunderstood someone's intentions because of your own fears? Have you ever assumed rejection when it was actually protection? If this story has touched your heart in any way, if it reminded you that courage sometimes means staying instead of running, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe for more stories that restore faith in people. And right now, I have a special request. Comment the word "second chance" if you believe that misunderstandings can turn into miracles. Today, when I walk into the office, I no longer feel like I'm climbing a mountain alone. I walk beside someone who once terrified me, someone who saw strength in me when I only saw survival. Our journey wasn't built on grand gestures or dramatic confessions. It was built on quiet belief, on pushing through fear, on choosing trust over assumption. I thought my CEO wanted me fired. It turns out she was fighting for me all along. And in discovering that, I found not just love, but the courage to finally believe in myself.